I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and it's part 2 of an epic dogfight battle between the Nexus 4 and the Galaxy Note 2. In this final race, which one will come out on top? Let's go take a look and find out. In part 1, we spent a lot of time covering the personalization features on the Note 2, and I want to jump back briefly to the Nexus 4 because there are some great features that come with Android 4.2 that you wouldn't notice right out of the box, but some that I find particularly useful. For example, the lock screen itself, I love the ability to come in here and do some custom shortcuts. So you can see, for example, I have a shortcut to my inbox, then I can add something else if I want to. Let's say, I want my calendar on the home screen. Well, I've got the ability to add my calendar, and then I have the ability to kind of customize it too as I see fit and make it a little bit larger. So from the lock screen, without actually going into the device itself, I can just swipe over. Should be able to just swipe over. Let's see here. Bam, and then I've always had an issue with this. There we go. You can see calendar shortcut, email shortcut, and then I can keep adding those as I see fit. So if I want like Google Plus, and I can do all of this stuff. Let's say, all circles. And we'll add a little setting here, a little widget here, and let's make it a little bit bigger. And so then from my lock screen, I can access camera, I can look at the time, I can check my emails and scroll up and down. These are dynamic widgets. I can scroll over and check my calendar, and I can look at Google Plus, back and forth, all without unlocking the device. And then when I want to go into the individual things, I can click and it'll let me go in. So you can do that with messaging and more. So it's a nice little benefit. I don't know how useful it would be on a daily basis, but I find it really nice to be able to do that stuff without unlocking the device itself. So that's a cool little feature of Android 4.2. Another one, jumping into cameras here, both of which have 8 megapixel cameras with 1080p HD video recording capabilities. This one's always hard to show on camera, but let me show you the little photosphere feature. And we'll do it just like this. We're going to line it up to the dots, as you can maybe be able to see in the camera. Let's try this. Boom. And then I can move it around as I see fit and move up. And again, very hard to show off on camera, but you're going to get the idea here in just a second. You can see, just put the dot in the circle. And I can continue to make kind of a sphere picture, if you will, of what's going on in my office, the life around me. And you can post this to Google+. So it gives you information and updates and more, so you have the ability to take advantage of that if that's something that interests you. Now I can come back into the camera here, and I've got a couple of different options. I've got panorama, I've got widescreen. I can come back in here and change around HDR. I can change my settings as I see fit. Scene modes, picture sizes, overall store locations. Got a couple of different choices here when it comes to white balance, when it comes to different color types, and then when it comes to flipping it around, obviously with flash, and then flipping it around to the front. So again, no real descriptors here. So again, somebody that's not familiar with cameras, they're probably going to walk into this and be like, okay, HDR is pretty self-explanatory, settings is pretty self-explanatory, flash is probably self-explanatory, flipping it around, but what are these? I think that's going to be the issue a lot of people are going to run into, whereas over here I find it's a little bit more consumer friendly, and that's kind of the theme you see here, but again, keeping in mind where these devices are being targeted to. Although I don't know that that's necessarily, I say that, and then I'm like, I don't know that that's necessarily what it is, because you see Nexus advertisements on TV on a pretty regular basis, at least for the tablets. But over here on the Samsung side, you get edit, shortcuts, burst shot, all the different effects and features you would imagine. Front-facing camera, I can change my shooting mode, best photo, best face, face detection, panorama, share shot. I use S-Beam on a regular basis on my Note 2, and you'll find that it's a really useful feature when you got a friend, a family member, a loved one that has a Note 2, a Galaxy S3, whatever the case may be, and you're at a wedding or you're at a special event and you take a bunch of pictures, and maybe they're involved in the wedding or maybe they're involved in the event itself. You can S-Beam the pictures together. It's super easy. I find it to be probably it's the feature that I thought honestly was a gimmick when I started using the S3 and the Note 2, and it's probably now the feature I use the most on my Note 2 is S-Beam. I use it at least once every, I'd say, 2 weeks, depending on the time of the year. But I love the features like best photo and best face as well. Face detection's great. Double tap to zoom in or out. Best photo is great. I can select the best 8 photos and move back and forth, and it'll process and tell me, or will give me the option to choose between the photo that I see as the best one. So little features like that I like. And then of course both of these have the ability to take still shots while you're recording as well. I'll go in here, and all I have to do is touch, and you'll see that it's taking pictures just like that on the 8 megapixel camera. I give the camera edge to the Note 2 just because of the features that come with the camera. The best photo, the ability to use S-Beam, some of the combined features, they really told a story around the camera, and I find it to be particularly useful on the Note 2. You can get a lot of those features on the Galaxy S3. We'll pop up Quadrant Standard here and take a look at the speed tests on both of these devices. Now keep in mind they both have quad-core processors. This has a Snapdragon S4 Pro CPU that's clocked at 1.5 gigahertz. This one has a quad-core Exynos CPU that's clocked at 1.6 gigahertz, so we'll take a look. Now the real winner to me, and it's funny with the Note 2 because honestly you look at the size and immediately a lot of people are like, this phone is way too big for me. And honestly for me, even in my day-to-day use, it's a big phone. I'm not going to deny it. It's still, I feel it every day when it's in my pocket. It's a giant phone. It gets talked about on a regular basis. The thing for me though is you kind of have to overlook it for some of the features that it offers. The quad-core Exynos processor, I've preached about the Exynos processor since the Galaxy S2. I find it to be a great fusion of power and it just works incredibly well with Android. The S4 Pro does too. Anything before the S3 on the Snapdragon side I didn't care for. S4 just revolutionized, does an incredible job. So I would definitely give it between the S4 Pro or even the dual-core S4 and then the Exynos. They all are great processors in mobile devices. They work really well with Android. But where the win here to me is with the Note 2, the battery life. This has a 2,100 milliamp hour non-removable battery. It says a 3,100 milliamp hour removable battery. It takes a little while to charge, but it is a fantastic device when it comes to battery life. I cannot kill this device in one day. I came really close at CES. I got down to like 11% after a really hard day of use in meetings and events, trying to touch base with people, email. Was incredibly impressed with how well this device performed from a battery standpoint. Really impressed all around. Huge battery. So for that road warrior, that person that needs a battery to make it through 2 days or so, this is going to be the device for you regardless of the size. So take that away. Either this device or the Droid Razr HD Max, or Droid Razr Max HD I should say, are going to be your devices. 4,517 in Quadrant Standard, 6,214 over here. Take it with a grain of salt. It's not always indicative of day-to-day performance. I say that all the time, but I find both of these devices to be incredibly fast all around. Take a look at speed test as well, because I want to compare T-Mobile's HSPA Plus 42 megabits per second to Verizon's 4G LTE. Now, Verizon gives an actual download and upload number. They estimate between 5 to 12 megabits, or guarantee rather, between 5 to 12 megabits per second of download time speed. Upload speeds between 2 and 5 megabits per second, so that's probably what you're going to see on a more saturated network like Verizon's. T-Mobile's I've seen as fast as 20 megabits per second in the Dallas Metroplex. Right now we're seeing slower speeds. Looks to be about 6.5, somewhere in there, 6.6 megabits per second. Every time I say it, it moves. 6.5 megabits per second on the download. Over here, 13.21 megabits per second on the download. Upload's 4.29. Obviously, this is market specific. Some places T-Mobile works great. Some places Verizon works great. Some it doesn't work so well, but what I do like about the Verizon side is at least it gives you, they guarantee a download speed and an upload speed, or at least a range of speeds. Whereas, T-Mobile, it can vary. I've seen it as high, like I said, as 20 megabits per second on HSPA Plus, 42 megabits per second. So not bad by any means. Both of these are respectable speeds. The upload speed is a little slow over here at 0.52 megabits per second, but otherwise, very respectable all around. Now, last but not least, I want to talk about the S Pen, because you don't get this level of content creation over on the Nexus 4, and pardon my S Pen, I actually lost the one out of the Verizon ones. I'm using the one out of my personal Note 2. It's pardon the color difference. It obviously does come with a gray one on the titanium gray Note 2, but you'll notice immediately when I pull it out, it gives me this little thing that says S Pen is in use and puts it up in the left-hand corner. So I know my S Pen's removed, and it brings over this page buddy. You can remove this as you see fit. You can move earphones page, docking page, roaming page. You can get rid of those if you so desire. I don't know why the S Pen page is removed, but you can see S Pen is in use. And I can scroll over here and get to my custom page where I can create a note, and then I've got stuff down here that they say is optimized for S Pen use. So I'll go into just an individual note, for example, and we'll talk a little bit. And take a look at the Note 2 full review if you want to see more of these features. And likewise over here, take a look at the Nexus 4 review. Of course, I can draw, and it works incredibly well all around. And then, of course, I can draw shapes, and it'll customize those shapes for me and make them a little bit more geometric than my terrible drawing abilities. Then over here, just doing it really quickly, I can type. And let's see what else we've got. Shape match, formula match, handwriting to text. One I use on a relatively regular basis. Try to say hey, there. As you can see, relatively easy to use. Some errors. Formula match. I can come in here and do 5 plus 5 equals. And then I can insert it, or I can search for it using Wolfram Alpha. So very cool, from a productivity standpoint. I can see this is a great fusion between business and personal. Really like that feature over here. This is a hacker's dream. I mean, this device is probably, I don't know, the Nexus 1 was absolutely beautiful, but definitely one of the most beautiful Nexus devices I've seen. Nice size, 4.7 inches, really going to be great for a lot of people that think 5.5 is too big. The specs are great. Price point is fantastic over here, even though the storage space is non-removable. So once you hit 8 gigabytes, you're stuck, or once you hit 16 gigabytes, you're stuck. Over here, you do have a micro SD card slot behind the battery door, as you can see right there with the micro SIM card slot. So you can add expandable memory and move along from there. So, like any Dogfight, it's a tough call, and you're gonna, whatever you prefer, you're gonna hear my Dogfight recommendation, and you're gonna say, I hate that device, or I love that device. Well, it depends on what's best for you. If you like to hack, root, and mod, and you want a powerful device, the most powerful Nexus to date, it's gonna be a great device for you. If you want something with some great customization abilities, with a big display, just with a ton of stuff just packed into a device, in terms of devices, it has the most features and software I think of any device I've ever reviewed. The Note 2 is gonna be a great unit for you. The overall winner of the Dogfight when comparing price point, comparing features, comparing specifications, comparing what it has to offer to the consumer, the Note 2 wins the Dogfight. Still really like the Nexus 4 for a lot of reasons, but again, I really struggle with the fact that stock Android, to me, it's beautiful, it looks great, it's nice and fast, and for those people that want software updates, it's gonna be top notch. That said, I still find it to be a little bit bare bones in comparison to some of the value adds you get with Sense, with TouchWiz, and to a lesser extent LG and Motorola. Keep it locked on PhoneDog.com for continuing coverage of both of these devices. I'm putting a Straight Talk SIM in this later in the week. Would love to hear your thoughts on what you think of prepaid carriers with the Nexus 4. PhoneDog_Aaron on Twitter, Facebook, Facebook.com/PhoneDog, Facebook.com/Hi Aaron Baker, or Facebook.com/PhoneDog is the company's page. Let me know what you think of these devices, and as always, we'll see you next time.